I like to tell people, I think I was born to be a vegan. And, they kind of side eye me when I say that. But, for as long as I could remember growing up, I've always had issues digesting meats. And what I remember was beef, chicken, but especially like beef. I just always seemed to have an aversion to it. So there was, always little Harriet misbehaving behind what we're eating today. A couple of things I would say happened that kind of started, me to look at nutrition. Unfortunately, when I was 10, my father died from a massive heart attack, and he was the age that I am now. He was 51 when he died from that heart attack. He had had them before, but that was the one that, took him out, but also gave me my purpose in life. And so that period of time between him being age 47 to 51, my mom was following all the guidelines and the recommendations that his cardiologist had, given us so that he could basically not take his health for granted. And so on a day that was very devastating for me, all I could really think about was, why would he not just listen to the doctor? And so I really started looking at food a little bit differently. I would say, maybe from the age of 7 to 10, because we were eating differently. So when I graduated from high school and went to college, which I went to NC State here in Raleigh, North Carolina, the first thing I decided was, I'm going to take out like red meats. And we really weren't eating a lot of pork, but I was just like, I'm taking it out because I know it's giving me heartburn. I know it's making me have slow transit or constipation. I just knew that from my childhood. So, I was away from home. It wasn't going to be a sign of disrespect. I mean, you have all the options you want, for food choices. There's lots of different things and cuisines. And so it was really good for me. There were more people at NC State than in my hometown. So if that tells you anything. And, I just noticed I felt better. Like I wasn't having as many digestive issues. And so I just gradually started like taking different meats out, but I left fish because I loved fish. I mean, it didn't really make me feel bad or anything. And so by the time I finished NC State, I taught there for 2 years before I went to med school. I was still eating pretty much, most things and fish. So, what now people say is pescatarian. So I still had dairy. One day, a group of friends and I were walking and we went to Ben and Jerry's. We did not have a Ben and Jerry's in my hometown. We had a Dairy Queen, which I'm sure is much less milk fat than, this rich Ben and Jerry's. And so I got ice cream. And before we could even get back to the apartment, because we walked, I was sick. I mean, I knew I had to go to the bathroom. I felt like I was cramping in my colon. It was awful. And so that was my first exposure to lactose intolerance, which I later learned in school. Most mammals should not be consuming cow's milk. I mean, we're not cows, and definitely not as an adult. So that made it pretty easy for me to remove dairy. Well, I won't say dairy. Let me be accurate. Milk and ice cream, because I was still eating cheese. I was still eating eggs, and I was still getting sick, but I couldn't pinpoint what is making me sick. And the sickness has always been my digestion. It's always been something with my digestion. So, I've gone from a kid who grandmother is always trying to give me some type of laxative or fiber supplement, and I'm drinking water and I was active, to now an adult who is afraid to eat because something's going to make me sick. And it's like it's not a good, it's not a good look.
So you
So
went from constipation, but when you were eating lots of meat, to diarrhea and
but I
gas.
couldn't figure out what was yes,
Yeah.
but I couldn't figure out what was causing that.
Mm.
And that went on, so I kept trying to say, okay, well, it's cheese, so I'll take cheese out. But then it just kept coming, but it was so intermittent, I couldn't figure out what was causing it. So I get through med school, I get through residency, and I'm still pretty much eating some dairy. So I'm a vegetarian. That was that long period of time where I'm eating what we like to say lacto-ovo vegetarian. So I still had some dairy products, and eggs. And once I finished my residency, my fellowship. Then when I moved to Virginia Beach to start my first job, my brother and his family came over from Germany to visit. And because I knew I was vegetarian and I was going to have a hard time finding food at the beach, I made this little salad that, really wasn't a salad, but it's, apples, raisins, carrots, and mayonnaise. And I grabbed some crackers. And so, in looking back, I wasn't counting macros then either. I was a huge runner. So I just wanted to be able to eat something besides just pizza crust or, something crazy. And so I ate that on the way down to the ocean front. And by the time, and I'm licking the mayonnaise off my finger, not on purpose, but, just trying to get my salad down. And once we started being active, it happened. And it's like a light bulb went off in my head. And it was also very embarrassing for me because you've got to stop what you're doing. You got to find a clean restroom. It would be so anxiety provoking, And so that's when just a light bulb went off. And I'm like, it's eggs. And it just started making sense. And so when I moved back to North Carolina, I joined a church in Charlotte, which was close to where I was from. And the pastor was talking about Daniel's fast. And so he was just saying, this is what me and my wife are doing. And, if you want to do some spiritual cleansing or take some things out of your diet, processed foods or other things, we're doing this for 40 days. There's a book, blah, blah, blah. So ordered the book, realized that, or maybe I went to the store and bought it, realized that there were recipes in the back. And I did this for 40 days, not knowing it was vegan. Didn't know. Felt so good. And then I decided I'm going to start eating like this. And that's really my journey to how I went from, the standard American diet to a 100% plant-based diet, which I have been maintaining for the past 16 years.
And to great effect.